On a rainy night when I was 18, Archie rode his motorcycle, smashed my window, and rescued me from the soul-devouring psychiatric hospital. At that time, I thought he was the knight coming to save me. So I fell in love with him without hesitation. However, 10 years have passed. Now, at 28, Archie grips my throat, his eyes fierce as he demands, "Maggie Talbot, why wasn't it you who died? You should have gone with her." Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. At the charity gala, Archie bid on the final auction piece. It was a royal heirloom necklace, worth millions of pounds. A reporter waiting outside approached him. "Are you gifting this necklace to your wife, Mr. Paxton? Gift it to her?" Archie scoffed, glancing in my direction. "As if she deserves it." His voice was cold, devoid of any emotion. Everyone turned to look at me. I lowered my gaze, suppressing the bitterness in my heart. Suddenly, a girl in a powder blue gown threw herself into Archie's arms. Like a naive princess from a fairy tale. "Archie, have you been waiting long?" The young woman looked up at him, her eyes sparkling. Around her pale neck was the necklace from the auction. She was Archie's latest flame, a recent university graduate. Rumor had it that when Archie pursued her, he rented out an entire ballroom and threw her a birthday party on a yacht with fireworks all night. They'd known each other for less than a month before the young woman fell for him. Camera shutters clicked furiously. "Mr. Paxton, what's your relationship with this young lady?" "Mr. Paxton, there are rumors about your impending divorce." "Is this true?" "Mr. Paxton." Almost all the reporters crowded around the pair. Archie swept an annoyed glance around, holding the young woman close as he guided her towards the car. I overheard the girl asking Archie softly, "It's about to rain heavily. Shouldn't we offer Maggie a ride?" Archie didn't break his stride, intimately kissing her ear. "Do you want her to be our third wheel?" "Oh! Keep your voice down." The girl stomped her foot shyly. As Archie opened the car door for her, she turned and winked at me, flashing an innocent smile. I clenched my fists tightly, my nails digging into my palms. Archie Paxton wasn't always like this. I've known him for a very long time. For a long while, my memories were a blurry gray, only coming to life in vibrant color when Archie appeared. When I was 18, I suffered from depression and attempted suicide multiple times, due to sexual abuse from my stepfather. I wanted to call 999, but on my way to do so, my mum dragged me by the hair to a psychiatric hospital. It was a rainy night just like this one, with the downpour hammering against the windows. I stared out of the hospital room window, contemplating whether I should just jump. But in the next moment, Archie suddenly appeared on his motorbike. He smashed my window and resolutely reached out his hand to me. He said, "Maggie Talbot, let's escape." At that moment, I truly believed Archie was a knight sent by God to save me. And I fell hopelessly in love with him. He pulled me out of the darkness, and we went to the same university, started a business together, and spent 8 unremarkable years side by side. At our poorest, we only had £4 between us. We bought 4 scones and stood by the roadside, chewing them dry as the cold wind whipped around us. In the howling winter winds, we often worked late into the night. Archie would carry me home on his back, promising to the moon, "Maggie, I'll make sure you have a good life." He truly kept his word. In 2012, Archie caught the wave of the internet boom. We moved to bigger and bigger houses, and our companies grew in number. He bought me walls full of designer bags, and brought back expensive jewelry from every business trip. Back then, he said that whatever I wanted, he would buy and present to me. But I never cared about how much money he had. I only wanted us to love each other and keep going together. I always thought true love would be reciprocated, not knowing that people's hearts can change. Countless arguments, endless screaming and cursing. We spent many years like this, at daggers drawn, until we both became versions of ourselves that despised each other. The rain poured down in torrents, cold wind whipping droplets against my skirt. I had called for an Uber on my phone and waited for ages, only to suddenly receive a call from the driver saying his car had broken down on the way, telling me to find another ride. Everyone from the evening party had left, and my Uber app still showed I was in a queue. After hesitating for a moment, I opened a chat window. "Are you free now?" I typed. The reply came quickly, and I sent him my current location. Matthew arrived faster than I expected. Through the curtain of rain, he called out to me. "Maggie, don't come over yet." He grabbed an umbrella from the car and hurried to my side, wrapping a blanket around me. "You should have called me earlier," he said softly, tilting the umbrella towards me and letting the rain soak his own body. The heater was on full blast in the car. Sitting in the passenger seat, I felt warmth returning to my frozen limbs. "Maggie, divorce him." "You should have your own life," Matthew said, turning to look at me. His handsome features were shadowed in the dim light, the emotion in his eyes hard to read. I remained silent, turning to look out the window. It's not that I hadn't thought about divorce. But every time, memories of the past would flood back like a rising tide. 18-year-old Archie, gently kissing the ugly scars on my wrist. His voice trembling as he cried, "Maggie, don't be afraid. I'll always be by your side. Please, don't give up on yourself." I felt so bitter, truly bitter. We had loved each other so deeply before. How did we end up like this? A week later, in the evening, I saw Archie again at the manor house. He was drunk, very drunk. His assistant had brought him home. I asked the assistant to take him upstairs and poured a glass of warm water, placing it on the bedside table. He hadn't been back for a long time, and there weren't many traces of his life in the manor. In name only might be the best way to describe our marriage. "Maggie, Maggie." I was about to leave when I heard Archie calling my name. It had been a long time since I'd heard him call me like that. I don't know if he was having a nightmare, but his brows were furrowed tightly, and beads of sweat had formed on his forehead. I shook him gently. "Archie, what's wrong?" His hand was gripping the bedsheet tightly, and he kept mumbling something. I leaned in closer and finally made out what he was saying. "Don't leave me." I was stunned for a moment, and after a long pause, I softly began. "Archie, I've always been." Before I could finish saying "here," I heard him say, "Paula." My heart trembled violently, and I felt as if I'd suddenly been plunged into an icy wasteland. A sharp pain surged through my chest. Paula. It had been so long since I'd heard that name. She was dead, and yet it felt like she wasn't. Like a thorn, deeply embedded in my heart. Every time I woke from a midnight dream, she would appear, reminding me of her existence in the most painful way. Before I turned 26, my relationship with Archie had always been smooth sailing. Until Paula Sinclair came into the picture. To be precise, she was Archie's first secretary. At that time, our company had just been set up, and Archie was working late every night for the business. Eventually, he worked himself to the point of getting a stomach ulcer and ended up in hospital. It just so happened that there was an important overseas project that needed to be negotiated. So I went in his place. Fortunately, the collaboration talks were very successful. It was only by securing this contract that our company could truly establish itself. I told Archie I wanted to look around abroad, so I stayed in Florence for a few weeks. Paula appeared during the time I was out of the country. At that time, Archie mentioned on the phone that he had recently hired an assistant. And there was obvious excitement in his voice. "That girl just graduated this year. Although she doesn't have much experience, after I taught her for a few days. She actually managed to close a deal on her own today. Maggie, I've really struck gold this time. I believe our company will keep getting better and better." Archie's voice was full of determination for the future. And I was genuinely happy for him. But actually, I lied to him that time. I hadn't gone on holiday. Because on the second day after signing the contract, riots broke out in the area where I was staying. Cars were burned, shops were smashed. Sirens and gunshots filled the air, and everywhere I looked was in ruins. I almost died there. But I didn't want Archie to worry about me, so I told a well-intentioned lie. I first met Paula in Archie's office. She wore a white blouse and black-framed glasses, with rather ordinary features. But her eyes were beautiful, clear and bright, like the purest spring water in the world. She looked up from a pile of documents and saw me, then stood up hurriedly, timidly calling me Mrs. Paxton. I smiled and shook her hand, handing over some of my previous work to her. Paula truly had a gift for the job. In just 2 short weeks, she was already handling the documents and meetings very well. Archie told me that Paula's parents were from the countryside, and they either beat or scolded her, even wanting to sell her to an old bachelor. She had worked to pay for her own school fees and living expenses since she was young. During the last company health check, she was found to be anemic and malnourished. As he said this, he slowly lowered his head. She's worked so hard to make it out of the countryside. I couldn't see Archie's expression, but I could hear the sigh in his voice. On Paula's birthday, I invited her to our home and personally cooked many dishes for her. In the dim candlelight, the young woman's eyes reddened as she clasped her hands together in prayer, making a wish. I remember the birthday gift I gave her was a Dior handbag. I thought the bag could represent both Archie's and my sentiments. But I didn't expect Archie to present another gift box later. I was a bit surprised at the time, as he hadn't mentioned to me beforehand that he had prepared a separate gift for Paula. Inside the box was a beautiful pair of high heels, adorned with diamonds, quite valuable. When Paula opened it and saw the shoes, she could no longer hold back her tears and began to cry. She said it was the first time in her life someone had celebrated her birthday. The first time anyone had given her a gift. She covered her face, sobbing uncontrollably, repeatedly saying thank you. Her fragile appearance tugged at one's heartstrings. Archie sighed beside her. He walked behind Paula and gently patted her back, speaking softly. "Paula, don't cry. It's all in the past now. From now on, we're family." These words reminded me of the past, when Archie had comforted me in the same way when I was on the verge of suicide. Later, I came across a quote in a book. "Pity is the beginning of love." This quote applied to me, and it applies equally to others. Perhaps long ago, a seed called Paula Sinclair had already been planted in Archie's heart. I was just too obtuse to notice it then, and by the time I realized, it was already too late. When did I first notice something was off with Archie? Perhaps it was when our conversations always seemed to drift towards Paula, intentionally or not. Maybe it was when he'd buy gifts for me, but always get an extra one for Paula. Or possibly it was how he constantly remembered Paula's preferences, paying attention to her every little detail. There was even a time when Archie wouldn't let Paula have ice cream, because he remembered it was her time of the month. I was horrified. Archie's kindness towards Paula had gone beyond normal boundaries. What upset me even more was that Paula seemed to have fallen for Archie too. Whenever Archie was mentioned, her eyes and brows would light up with a smile, her face unconsciously revealing that girlish shyness. When Archie was working, Paula would gaze at him lovingly from the side. She'd bring him breakfast, choose his ties, adjust his collar. All with meticulous care, every bit the picture of a devoted wife. During that time, I was busy dealing with matters at our branch office. It wasn't until things calmed down that I realized at some point. Their eyes had become filled with reflections of each other. Standing beside them, I felt like an outsider. When I became aware of all this, I felt a chill run through my body. One night when Archie came home late, I waited up for him until the early hours. I asked him, "Where have you been so late?" Paula was having dinner with friends. It got too late, so I drove her home. I was worried about her safety. He replied calmly, as if discussing something completely ordinary. How absurd for a company CEO to be driving his young assistant home in the middle of the night. I lowered my head in silence, then looked up at him. "Archie, don't you think your kindness towards Paula could be easily misunderstood?" Archie was stunned, staring at me blankly. I don't know what he was thinking at that moment, but it felt like ages before he finally spoke. "I'm sorry, Maggie. I'll be more mindful in future," he said, his eyes filled with apology. "I've always seen Paula as a younger sister," he added in a hoarse voice. I stared at him intently, trying to find any hint of deception on his face. "I just felt Paula was so much like you back then, but I neglected your feelings," he said, looking at me and sighing as he pulled me into his arms. After that, Archie became distant towards Paula. I accidentally overheard one of their phone conversations. I couldn't make out what they were saying, But Archie's voice was low, yet I could still hear the anger in his words. Once, when I went to the head office to sign a contract, I saw Paula sitting dejectedly at her workstation, her eyes red. I knew why. Archie had transferred her to a different position. Mrs. Paxton, have I done something wrong? Why has the boss suddenly changed, as if he's become a different person? She asked, looking up at me. Her once bright face had turned pale, filled with an unshakable melancholy. Could you talk to the boss and ask him to transfer me back, please? Paula grabbed my wrist, her eyes pleading. Tears rolled down her cheeks, her fragile appearance reminiscent of a kite fluttering uncertainly in the wind. I frowned, saying nothing, and simply withdrew my hand with detachment. The turning point of the story occurred a month later. That night, just as we were about to go to bed, Archie suddenly received a call from Paula. On the other end of the line, Paula was screaming for Archie to come and save her, accompanied by the sound of a man cursing and things breaking. Archie's face changed dramatically. He rushed downstairs without even putting on his socks. On the way, he drove his car at breakneck speed, his brows tightly furrowed, and even his hands gripping the steering wheel were trembling slightly. I rarely saw Archie like this. I've called 999. The police station is nearby, I'm sure they'll be there soon, I said. Archie nodded, his gaze still fixed intently on the road ahead. When we arrived at the hotel, the police had just arrived as well, restraining a man. I recognized him, he was one of our company's business partners. Paula was shivering, curled up in the corner, her hair disheveled. Her hands were covered in blood, tightly clutching a piece of broken glass. It wasn't until she saw Archie that a glimmer of clarity returned to her eyes. I'm here, it's okay, don't be afraid. Archie knelt on the ground, taking off his coat and carefully draping it over her shoulders. I'm here, I'm here. He gently wiped the tears from her face with his thumb, his movements incredibly tender. Perhaps it was the sudden release of tension at that moment. But Paula burst into tears, tightly embracing Archie. I clearly saw the expression on Archie's face. Guilt, pain, remorse, and eyes full of heartache. His eyes were focused solely on Paula, just as they used to be focused only on me. Paula's mental state was too fragile for the police to take a statement. Archie and I stayed with her all night. The next morning, Paula suddenly developed a high fever, so we rushed her to the hospital. While I was at the payment window, I received a call from the police and learned the gist of what had happened. Last night, the department manager had hosted a dinner for visiting potential partners. One of them got drunk, and Paula volunteered to escort him to his hotel room upstairs. No one expected he would try to assault her, but fortunately, he didn't succeed. As I approached Paula's hospital room with the paperwork, I overheard voices before I could open the door. Boss, why do you keep avoiding me? The young woman's voice was choked with emotion. These past few days, I've finally realized that what I feel for you isn't familial affection, but love, the way a woman loves a man. I truly love you. My hand froze on the doorknob. Through the gap, I saw Paula suddenly grab Archie's shirt and kiss him. Her eyes closed and her expression determined and fearless. The young woman's passionate love could no longer be contained. Even with an IV drip, she had to kiss the man she loved. I bit my lip hard, unable to describe my feelings. Disgust, nausea, like eating a dog turd covered in cream. It wasn't until Archie pushed Paula away and frantically said, "Don't do this, it's impossible between us," that I took a deep breath and walked in. That night, after much hesitation, I sent Paula a message. There's nothing wrong with love itself. I understand Archie may have attracted you at some point, but he's married. You're capable and educated, you'll meet someone better in the future. I hope you don't go down the wrong path. Rest and recover for now, then resign when you're feeling better. I chose my words carefully, respecting her dignity and hoping she would see her future clearly. However, the next news I received was that she had took her own life. I still remember how Archie changed after returning from the police station. He smashed our wedding photo and grabbed my throat. His eyes bloodshot as he demanded to know why I had sent Paula that message. Why it wasn't me who had died instead. He called me a vicious woman who should join Paula in death. He said he regretted rescuing me from the psychiatric hospital that night. That someone like me should have rotted there forever. His gaze was cold and disappointed, as if I had done something unforgivable. I could no longer deceive myself that Archie's interest in Paula was just a passing fancy. I finally accepted the fact that Archie had fallen in love with someone else. This process was agonizing and painful, seemingly draining all my energy and emotions. Even though I take antidepressants daily, despair still floods over me like a tidal wave every night, drowning and consuming me. I haven't had a good night's sleep in a long time. Archie pulled me out of darkness, but just when I let down all my defenses and ran towards him, he pushed me into an even deeper abyss. I remained seated on the sofa until the first light of dawn cast its glow through the window. Only then realizing that day had broken. Archie emerged from the bedroom, furrowing his brow when he saw me. "Why am I here?" he asked. "You had too much to drink." "Your assistant brought you over," I replied. He pinched the bridge of his nose, looking rather irritated. Then picked up his suit jacket from the sofa, preparing to leave. "Archie," I called out, standing up. Though we were only a few meters apart, it felt as if there was an enormous chasm between us, impossible to cross. "What is it?" He turned, asking impatiently. "Do you remember what you said to me when we got married?" Archie paused, his brow furrowing deeper. "What are you on about this early in the morning?" I stared into his eyes, trying to see through to the young man who had once knelt before me, vowing never to betray me. Alas, that man was long gone. The endless arguments and insults had worn away all our love, leaving only resentment. What was the point in continuing like this? I let out a soft sigh. "Archie, let's get a divorce." He stopped abruptly, looking at me in disbelief. "Maggie, do you realize what you're saying?" It was almost laughable. After years of tormenting each other, neither of us had ever mentioned divorce. I said, "Let's get a divorce," I repeated calmly, meeting his gaze. "I'll contact a solicitor to sort out the division of our assets." "Huh, already lined up a solicitor, have you?" Archie looked at me mockingly. "Fine, have it your way then." He looked furious as he slammed the door behind him. Matthew had somehow heard about my impending divorce. He suddenly called me, saying he'd composed a new song and invited me to listen. He's the kind of person who loves music. When he starts singing on stage, he shines brilliantly. I'm not a professional, so I couldn't give specific advice. But I felt it was different from his usual cool style. It gave me a feeling of lying on a grassy field, with a gentle spring breeze caressing me, free and spontaneous. "How was it? Did you like it?" Matthew asked earnestly, winking at me after finishing the song. "It was lovely." I especially liked the last line, "Wishing you freedom, wishing you brightness." Matthew's eyes sparkled. "Maggie, this song was written for you. Only you have heard it, and it's only meant for you." I was stunned for a moment, then asked with a smile, "Does that mean I need to pay you royalties? Like slipping me a card as you did when we first met?" Matthew raised an eyebrow at me. This comment reminded me of our first encounter. That day, I had heard another bit of gossip about Archie, and went to his office to confront him, only to witness a heart-wrenching scene. By then, Archie had become completely brazen about his affairs. I wandered the streets in a daze, tears streaming down my face, from afternoon until evening. Finally, exhausted from crying, I was about to sit on a park bench when I heard Matthew singing. His voice was deep and unique, very pleasant to listen to. Perhaps it was my emotional state, but as soon as I heard it, I felt like crying again. So I approached him and asked, "Could you sing something else?" He glanced at me, nodded with a smile, and sang several more songs. Each one made me want to cry more, tears flowing uncontrollably. Eventually, I stood up from the bench, pulled a card from my bag, handed it to him, and asked, "Could you go sing somewhere else?" Later, when Matthew recounted this incident, he said he was completely baffled at that moment. It was the first time he had ever doubted his abilities. I said, "You can if you want, but it'll have to be next time." I didn't bring a card this time. "I was just joking," he chuckled softly. "I know." "Maggie," Matthew suddenly moved closer, his playful expression fading. "I wish you a happy divorce." His tone was sincere, a smile playing on his lips. I nodded. I'll be happy in the future, I suppose. After all, I've bravely said goodbye to the past. Matthew walked me down from upstairs. He told me he was going back to North City soon. His parents wanted him to take over the family business. So we might not see each other for a long time. Will you miss me? He turned and asked, his eyes twinkling. Of course I will, as a friend, I replied. His eyes dimmed for a moment, but he quickly put on a smile. Well then, good friend, may I have a hug? He opened his arms, and I stepped forward to embrace him. Thank you, I said softly. I was grateful for his presence in my life. Over the past few years, he had been there to guide me, telling me that cutting my losses wasn't cowardice, and that I should always love myself. Matthew held on for a long time before letting go. He glanced behind me and then gave me a knowing look. Why does your ex-husband look like he's here to catch us in the act? Following Matthew's gaze, I turned to see Archie in the distance. His face was cold, his eyes scanning me and then Matthew beside me. His expression was tense, as if a storm was brewing. I turned back to Matthew. You should go up now. No need to see me off. Oh, and good luck with your career in North City. Matthew nodded, and as he left, he reached out and affectionately ruffled my hair. He did it on purpose, I thought, giving him a sidelong glance. Archie stood in the distance, his brow furrowing deeper, as if waiting for me to approach him voluntarily. I paid no attention, opening the car door beside me and preparing to leave. Suddenly, he strode quickly to stand in front of me, extending his arm to block my way. Maggie, do you find this amusing? He stared at me intently, his tone heavy. I've already separated from Jillian. You don't need to file for divorce. Nor do you need to deliberately find another man to provoke me. Stop playing these games of hard to get. Jillian was the name of the girl Archie had been keeping. I was stunned. He actually thought I had filed for divorce as a way to win him back. What exactly do you want? Seeing that I remained silent, Archie grew impatient. Let's put Paula's matter behind us. I don't blame you anymore, and... I suddenly looked up at him. Where did he get the nerve to blame Paula's death on me? The fire in my heart flared up, and I could no longer control myself. I slapped Archie hard across the face. Are you awake now? I looked at him coldly. Maggie Talbot, do you know what you're doing? Archie cupped his cheek, his expression darkening. Even now, you don't understand that I was never the one who caused Paula's death. I looked at Archie standing before me, feeling disgusted and regretting every bit of genuine care I had ever given him. You had a family, yet you didn't know how to draw clear boundaries with her. That's the cause. Her lack of self-respect and shamelessness led her down the path to death. That's the effect. Everything that happened was the result of your and her own actions. It had nothing to do with me. If she were standing in front of me now, I would slap her hard several times and tell her she deserved to die. I looked at him with a cold smile. If you loved her so much, why didn't you go join her in the grave? In the end, you're just a selfish, self-serving person who only knows how to stand on a moral high ground and criticize others. Archie stared at me, speechless. He seemed to want to argue but found he had no grounds to do so. The divorce papers have been drawn up by the solicitor. If you have no objections, sign them as soon as possible. I walked past him and got into the car, not wanting to see the expression on his face any longer. I heard about Jillian again at the company's shareholders meeting. One of the company's original founders, who had started the business with me, mentioned it in passing. She said that on a rainy day, Jillian was standing outside the company building, soaked to the skin, clutching Archie's sleeve, crying and asking him why he was being so heartless, suddenly abandoning her. Archie didn't even look at her, just got straight into his car. You should have seen how wretched she looked. Her words reminded me of a singer Archie used to fancy. He was quite taken with her at the time, even brazenly bringing her to my birthday party. But later, when the singer's scandalous past was dug up by a rival, her brand partners came to terminate their contracts and demand compensation. It was also raining heavily that day. She ran to the mansion to find Archie, crying and begging him to help her. I still remember how Archie casually brushed her hand away, smiling cruelly, and retorted, "Oh? Why should I help you?" Over the years, it's not so much that I've found him increasingly hard to understand, but rather that I've never truly known him. It seems that someone he cherishes one moment can be tossed aside the next. Maggie and I went to the court to file for divorce. And the process was smooth, except for the 30-day cooling-off period. As we left, Archie gave me a complex look and said, "If you change your mind, you can cancel anytime," before hurrying away. I found it laughable. I regretted falling in love with him so recklessly. And I regretted the years we spent entangled in each other's lives. But I would never regret divorcing him today. The next day, while I was packing my belongings at the house, Archie suddenly rushed back from the office. He glanced at the movers in the room and confronted me. "The estate agent told me you're planning to sell the house?" His voice was tinged with anger. I nodded. "When we bought this house, it was put in my name." "Maggie, is this really necessary? Are you that desperate for money?" To be honest, I didn't need the money. Back then, Archie and I started the business together. I still had shares in his main company. And I had managed the branch office for several years until I gradually stepped back due to health reasons. I don't need it, but it's uncomfortable to keep. I bent down to continue packing. By the way, the estate agent said people might come to view the house in a few days. When you have time, ask your assistant to take your things away too. Archie's emotions suddenly flared up. Uncomfortable? Are you saying that our relationship of over a decade means nothing to you? He grabbed my wrist, his eyes brimming with anger. This house indeed held special meaning for us back then. Everything in it, from the fridge and TV to the pots and pans, we had carefully chosen together. Back then, we stood on the second floor, Archie hugging me from behind as we looked out the window, and he said, "Maggie, we finally have a home." Unfortunately, even the most sincere feelings can't withstand the changes in people's hearts. I shook off his hand, looked up, and spoke calmly. "Archie, how much affection do you think is left between us?" He was stunned, taking several seconds before he could speak. "Maggie, you're so heartless." I smiled, feeling a sudden dull pain in my chest. Heartless? From what position are you saying this, Archie? Was it me who grabbed your throat, saying you should join Paula in death? Was it me who stood by your hospital bed when you attempted suicide, challenging you to really die if you had the guts? And was it me who stayed out all night, fooling around in bed with other women? I looked up at Archie. "Have you forgotten all these things you've done?" The color drained from his face as our eyes met. "Maggie." His lips quivered, his eyes seemingly full of unspoken words. He didn't know how many times I had to cry myself out before I could calmly say these words today. "Archie, the affection between us has long since been exhausted." After packing the last box, I left without a backward glance. It was a few years ago when I first heard someone mention the Yorkshire Dales. Since then, I had always wanted to go, but never found the time, always getting caught up in other things. This time, I didn't hesitate. I booked a train ticket to Yorkshire without a second thought. Finally, I saw the rolling hills I had dreamed of for so long. The troubles that had once shackled me seemed insignificant in the face of this endless green landscape. Beneath me was the soft grass, above me a sky full of stars. Riding a horse against the wind, I tasted true freedom. I fell in love with this place, and as I left, I felt certain I would return. The day I returned home happened to be the last day of the mandatory cooling-off period. Before my divorce could be finalized, Archie had somehow found out my address and was waiting outside my flat. "Maggie, can we talk?" He approached me, his eyes pleading. I didn't respond, only looked at him coldly as I reminded him. "Don't be late tomorrow, and don't forget to bring the necessary documents." "Maggie." His voice was thick with suppressed pain. "I don't want a divorce." Do we really have to go through with this? It had been a long time since I'd heard him speak in such a dejected tone. Over the years, his career had flourished, his net worth steadily increasing. "Yes," I replied calmly, meeting his gaze. "Archie, we can't go back. I won't waste another second on you." His eyes darkened further, and finally, he turned and stumbled away. As I stepped out of the court, a divorce certificate was now in my hand. He had hurt me time and time again. Taking the lion's share of our assets was my way of evening the score. Archie followed closely behind me, his voice choked with emotion. "Maggie, I'm sorry." I turned to face him, my gaze cold. "You should be sorry. And I never planned on forgiving you." His eyes were rimmed with red, his fingers trembling as they gripped the divorce papers. "Maggie, do you still love me?" His gaze bore into me, desperation and pain intertwined in his eyes. I paused, falling silent. Through the light behind him, I seemed to see the young boy he once was. 16-year-old Archie. Secretly cutting out our exam results where our names were side by side. His eyes unable to hide his feelings. "Maggie, if you need help with any questions, I've got you covered." 17-year-old Archie, standing under a streetlight in the snow. Making a wish on the fireworks with reverence. "I hope Maggie Talbot will always be safe, happy, and get everything she wants." 18-year-old Archie, face flushed in the sunlight. Awkwardly producing a bouquet from behind his back, voice shaking. "Maggie, could you love me?" The image of the bright-eyed, blushing boy gradually merged with the man before me. And I heard my heart's firm answer. "Archie, I don't love you anymore. To me, you might as well be dead." I turned quickly and walked away, glancing up at the sky before I left. Soft light filtered through the clouds onto the street, like a delicate veil. Beautiful. Archie's perspective. The villa Maggie had sold eventually ended up in Archie's hands. The thought of someone else living in the house that once belonged to him and Maggie made his heart ache unbearably. He pushed open the door. The villa was empty, all of Maggie's belongings were gone. Except for... He looked bitterly at the box at his feet. It contained the things Maggie had thrown away when she moved out, including the couple's mugs and pajamas they had bought together, as well as the gifts he had given her. He, a grown man, had sneaked to the rubbish bin in the middle of the night and retrieved them. Quite ridiculous, isn't it? Archie smiled wryly. He put all those items back in their places, then lay down on the bed with his eyes closed, imagining Maggie had never left. Back then, they had just got married. After a long day's work, they would collapse onto the bed, exhausted. Maggie would suddenly roll over, prop her chin on her hands, and ask him, "Archie, do you think you'll fall in love with someone else when I'm old?" He remembered his answer was, "That day will never come." "But what if?" she insisted, her eyes sparkling like stars, filled with determination. He chuckled, couldn't help but kiss the corner of her lips, and cupped her face, saying, "There's no what if." The sound of fireworks brought him back to reality. Archie opened his eyes, disoriented. He looked out the window. Today was Christmas Eve. He wondered if Maggie, miles away, had eaten any roast turkeys. Before Paula appeared, they had always spent Christmas Eve together. They would buy lots of groceries from the supermarket, then spend the evening making cakes while watching telly. Archie would deliberately smear flour on her face, teasing her that she looked like a little kitten. Sometimes when Maggie got annoyed, he would lower his head and apologize softly, promising never to do it again. How in love they were back then. Archie belatedly reached out to touch the space beside him, finding it empty. Maggie moved to live in the Yorkshire Dales. Archie secretly went to find her. At that time, she was riding a horse on the moor, looking dashing and spirited, like a free-soaring eagle. He didn't dare to approach, only watching her from afar for a moment. He heard from the nearby farmers that Maggie had bought 1,000 sheep, and would lead them to graze on the moor every day. He couldn't help but curl his lips into a slight smile. Seeing her happy and content made him glad. Yet, there was still some regret that the person by Maggie's side was no longer him. A year later, Archie went to the factory in Florence to discuss contract renewal. Strangely, one of the managers there stared at his face for a long time. Archie couldn't help but ask, "Is there something wrong with the contract?" The man shook his head and asked seriously, "Is your wife's surname Talbot? Didn't she come with you this time?" The man's English was a bit broken, and it took Archie a while to react. "She's already divorced me," Archie said, lowering his eyes. "That's a shame," the man said with a tone of regret. Last time, she missed seeing Lake Blaze because of the riots. She told me then that next time she wanted to bring her husband along. Archie suddenly froze. Riots? What riots? He grabbed the man's sleeve, urgently asking for information. Maggie had never told him about the riots that happened in Florence at that time. You don't know about this? The man was somewhat surprised. When she came last time, riots broke out. She was accidentally grazed by a bullet on her shoulder and had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. Archie's face suddenly turned pale. He staggered, and for a moment, it was as if he couldn't hear any of the surrounding sounds. In a foreign country, unable to speak the language, and with a gunshot wound. He couldn't imagine how Maggie had managed to get through it all alone. A belated love grew wildly in his heart. He crouched down in despair, covering his face as tears flowed through his fingers. That night, he went to Lake Blaze alone. The blue waters were clear and bright, mysterious and beautiful. Maggie, I've seen it, he whispered to the lake surface. On his way back, Archie witnessed a kidnapping. As he risked his life to save the child from the kidnapper, an accomplice suddenly appeared behind him and raised a gun. The bullet entered through Archie's chest. No one knows whether tomorrow or an accident will come first. As Archie lay on the ground, closing his eyes, he suddenly thought, Maggie, was it this painful for you back then?